What's up, guys? Jordan here on Monday, April 22nd. Good to be back and good to be feeling better. I think I'm mostly caught up on everything I've been wanting to talk about on this channel, doing those live streams the past couple of days. And as for this video, I want to touch on the Sri Lanka bombings that happened yesterday, some fake news going around about vaccines. We'll touch on geoengineering and then space technology and UFOs as well. Still quite a bit to catch up on in that regard. But a few things before we get into all of that. Number one, I want to tell you about some interviews that I've done that have been recently released on some YouTube channels. So the first one is on third phase of the moon. I sat down with these guys a couple of weeks ago on the big island of Hawaii, and we had an awesome conversation, talked about solar flares and the pole shift. So if you want to watch that interview, I'll make a little card pop up or post a link down below. And then the other YouTube channel that I sat down with was the good old Edge of Wonder guys. And we talked about Q, the Mueller report, and a bunch of great stuff. Again, if you want to watch that interview, card, or a link down below. And then another thing is a word from a sponsor of this channel, and that is NOBLEGOLD. NOBLEGOLD is a company that helps you invest your money in precious metals. Precious metals like gold and silver are actually a safer bet than the stock market to invest in, and in the long run can bring you more financial return. But they also have some sweet commemorative coins if you want to have some physical precious metals on hand. They have a Trump coin, and they have old rare coins as well in both gold and silver. So there you go. If you want to invest in precious metals, check out NOBLEGOLD. There'll be some free ebooks and a number where you can call them up down below. Now let's get into the Sri Lanka bombing. So yesterday on Easter of all days, in Christian churches, hotels, various businesses around Sri Lanka, multiple places, bombs went off. Nearly 300 people died in just terrible, terrible terrorist attacks that happened over there. And after these incidences, Sri Lanka shut down access to Facebook and other social media websites. The government literally denying public access to very important communication services. So this is very reminiscent of what happened in New Zealand after the Christchurch shooting. New Zealand denied access to 8chan and social media sites there as well. So this seems to be standard operating procedure by governments after these false flags or these terrorist attacks, is to just shut down public communication systems and especially social media. So this looks to be to prevent people from sharing truthful information about what could actually be going on. So this is why it's very important to arm yourself with something like a VPN, something that can help you bypass these censorship restrictions. So there's that. And then also, I mean, shoot, just 2 days ago, the day before this Sri Lanka bombing, I was warning in my video about the deep state trying to incite religious war. And then this happened yesterday. I mean, the deep state procedure, their modus operandi, you know, how they go about their agenda, it's like clockwork. It doesn't take a genius or a rocket scientist to point out and guess this kind of stuff. They are absolutely trying to incite a religious war. They use the deep state patsy, being ISIS, to bomb Christian churches on Easter. I mean, completely trying to pit millions and billions of people against each other. Don't fall for it, guys. I'm seeing so many people out there fall for it. Just like I've been saying, there's wonderful people out there who call themselves Muslims. There's wonderful people out there who call themselves Christians. There's also very evil people out there who just happen to box themselves in and label themselves as Muslims. And then there's people with evil in their hearts who call themselves Christians as well. I don't care what you label yourself as. I don't care what belief system you decide to go with. I don't care if you don't label yourself at all or don't have really any belief system, right? As long as you're a good human who's not harming anybody else or harming their property, that's okay by me. We are one humanity here with many different cultures, many different, groups and affiliations and whatnot, but we're one human race here on this planet. And it's a war from the elite, the deep state, the powers that be against all of humanity. As Q has continuously said, it's not about race, it's not about religion, it's not about any of that. It's about humanity's freedom and us freeing ourselves from the control of the powers that be. All right, so don't fall for that religious race baiting, a religious war that the deep state is desperate to divide and conquer us with, to distract us with. All right, now let's move on and talk about vaccines. So there's just some really, really terrible fake news being spread around by NBC in particular. And what they did is that they used a stock photograph. You can see right here, I tweeted about it this morning. They used a stock photo for their vaccine propaganda. This here on the bottom is a screenshot from a report they did this morning about measles. Of course, the measles outbreak and a bunch of vaccine propaganda they were putting out about that. But you can see here, here's a kid. Looks like he has, really it looks like chickenpox. Doesn't even look like measles. And then above it, this is the stock photo. Here's the stock photo. All they did was try to put some disease pimples on this kid, and then they color graded it a little bit. It's the exact same photograph. Horrible stuff. And as if a nurse would be holding a kid that had measles with their bare hand. I mean, just terrible, terrible propaganda narrative spinning with this. And this shows you fake news is truly the enemy of the people. Horrible for NBC to do this. Here's the link to the cdc.gov website I want to show you guys. I mentioned this in a video maybe a week or two ago. I think I forgot to link this down below, but again, there'll be a link for this down below to check this out. This is the National Notifiable Infectious Diseases Weekly Table. This is actually a weekly table for measles cases reported to the CDC around the country. You can see it has indigenous and then imported, so measles cases that originated in the country or that came into the country. It's got cumulative 2018 totals and 19 totals. But take a look at this. Wasn't there supposed to be a measles outbreak in Washington State earlier this year? Well, it's not reported on the CDC's website. Did that actually happen? And how about the supposed 555 cases that the NBC was reporting on with their fake stock photo here? 555 cases. Huh? Really? Well, around the country right now, it only says there's about 160 imported plus 160 indigenous with 193 imported. In New York, isn't there supposed to be hundreds and hundreds of measles cases? Well, there's only 126 in New York City, 137 in the Middle Atlantic itself. What about these outbreaks? Why is the CDC.gov stats way different from what the media is reporting? I think some of these outbreaks might be manufactured, and a lot of this news we're hearing in the media is complete fake and hysteria. Bunch of fear they're trying to drive home into people so they run out and get their vaccines, especially their MMR vaccine. Merck is the sole manufacturer of the MMR vaccine here in America. Does Merck want some money? Is Merck the one paying off a lot of these public officials and doctors to claim there's an outbreak of measles going on? I got a lot of questions. All right, let's move on into talking geoengineering. So, of course, with the climate change propaganda that always gets pushed out there, what they're doing with that is trying to subtly slide in some information about geoengineering, saying, oh man, geoengineering is one of the only things that we can do to combat this man-made climate change. Horrible stuff. What they're trying to do is normalize the geoengineering that's already taking place over our heads. I just saw it yesterday. Big old lines. It's not water vapor. When it doesn't dissipate, it's not water vapor. Big old lines of stratospheric aerosol sprays over our heads. And, you know, if you've noticed, if you're observant, you've seen these things over our heads for years. It's been there for years. So it's not like this hasn't been going on. But of course, what the deep state needs to do right now is normalize that. Too many people are waking up, looking up, and going, what the heck are those things? So the deep state needs to normalize this stuff, and that's what they're doing here in these articles like this coming out from the Business Insider a couple of days ago saying, oh man, we need to do this geoengineering, and we need to do it to protect the Earth and to stave off climate change. So it's all this nonsense they're putting out there just to get people to accept it and want it, you know, think it's good for us and that we need it when it's really not. Vaccine fake news, geoengineering fake news. What else do we need to go through? How about this? The Huffington Post running an article on Satanism. Satan is having a moment they say. A new documentary is chronicling the rise of the Satanic Temple. They're calling it a modern pseudo-religion. Wow. And this is a whole article basically trying to tell us that Satanism really isn't all that bad. It's all about compassion and free speech. The story of the Satanic Temple is one of free speech. It's horrible. I mean, what sort of, again, normalization is going on here? Literally got this photograph of a dude throwing up the horns next to Baphomet here. Huh. Yeah, talk about normalization. Talk about trying to get people to accept some really weird stuff. And, I mean, the majority of the people that get caught up with this Satanic Temple, quote, pseudo-religion, really have no idea that they're falling for this nonsense. And they have no idea what Baphomet really represents in the elite circles and how all these sick powers that be truly believe in Satan, Baphomet, pray to these sorts of gods, try to invoke a bunch of black magic through them. Sick stuff. Really sick stuff. So, you know, all these folks here that they featured, whereas this photograph here, and all these people that are part of this Satanic Temple, they have no idea what really goes on at the upper echelons of that particular, quote, religion. And then Huffington Post, of course, trying to normalize the nasty stuff here. I'll pass. Next, Elon Musk talking about his Neuralink. His Neuralink that he says is going to connect human brains to computers. And Elon Musk tweeted that it's going to be coming very soon. So Neuralink, right, is Elon Musk's venture that, like it says here, he's trying to connect the human brain to computers. So man will, quote, merge with artificial intelligence. We can basically be able to work the computers with our brains or something to that effect, which I would be all for. Sounds great. I would love to be able to control a computer with my thoughts. But here's the thing about Elon Musk's Neuralink. It requires an implant to do that. He wants to implant something in people's heads, like a little chip or RFID chip, whatever the case, implant it into a person's skull, and then that's how the individual is going to be able to control the computer, is through that little chip between the skull and the flesh implanted right there at your temple. Again, I'll pass on that. I'm sure there's technologies out there that can utilize an individual's brain waves without an invasive procedure. I'm all for that. But if they need to put any sort of chip in me, I don't care where the chip is, my wrist, my head, I'm not for that. No chips. No chips. And in fact, you don't really need chips. The power of consciousness, the power of our DNA, our innate human abilities of our minds doesn't require any sort of chip embedded into us. You can remote view. You can have all sorts of ESP abilities, extrasensory abilities, and don't need any sort of chip embedded into you. How about this article from Zero Hedge that came out yesterday? Telepathic Russian troops trained for psychic warfare. And that's something the US has studied for decades. So Zero Hedge was reporting how the Russian military was putting out in their official magazine from the Russian Ministry of Defense that they're training psychic special forces. Pretty incredible stuff that the Russian military is admitting to. And then Zero Hedge is reporting on the fact that intelligence agencies in America here, like the NSA and the CIA, have actually been doing this for decades, even all the way back since the 60s and 70s. They've been training soldiers to remote view, move inanimate objects with mental powers. Wow, incredible, incredible stuff. Very long research expose here. A lot of official documentation as well from the CIA. Declassified documents showing that this is very real stuff, and these three-letter agencies take it very seriously. The reason being is because your consciousness, again, you can activate your own powers that we all have, and you can all train yourself with, and you don't need any sort of chip embedded in your head to do so, right? So I'll pass on Elon Musk's Neuralink, And if you want to read a little bit more about these remote viewing programs, link in that article down below. And then last thing, let's touch on UFOs and space technologies. So Newsweek put out this a few days ago: the most credible UFO sightings and encounters in modern history according to research. Huh. All right. Well, in getting into this article, few things arise. What they do, number one here, is insert their gatekeeper, their, quote, scientific coalition for ufology. And this scientific coalition for ufology was started in 2017. It's filled with a bunch of PhDs, a bunch of university and corporate guys, a dude from NASA. So am I going to trust what comes from the scientific coalition for ufology? I'm not. Sounds like a total gatekeeper. And not just that, but I love what Newsweek entitled this article: the most credible UFO sightings and encounters in modern history according to research. According to whose research? The CIA's research? Is that going to be the most credible UFO sightings and encounters in modern history? Yeah, no. Really what they do, and in each of these UFO encounters, they go through Roswell, they go through a few others. Again, whitewash. The Washington, D.C. flyover. I mean, they leave out so much information and so much context about pretty much every single one of these sightings. And then get this, the very last sightings they offer and what they call the most credible sightings are these ones right here. The ones that came from the To the Stars Academy, you know, those New York Times disclosures, case publicized by the New York Times back in December 2017. Talk about CIA whitewash. Like, they literally inserted the sightings that the CIA wants you to go towards. Because the To the Stars Academy and the New York Times publications here, I mean, this is the limited hangout disclosure being brought forth by the deep state. It's got John Podesta's, Hillary Clinton's, Rockefeller fingerprints all over it, and all sort of deep state fingerprints over it. So I laughed. I laughed so hard when I found out that the most credible sightings are these two, the ones that were brought out by To the Stars, Podesta's front. It's just nonsense. So there's that horrible article. Next one, let's go to the Metro. So Metro.uk here, reporting on a Navy secretly designed futuristic aircraft resembling a UFO. And the incredible thing is, this is a real patent. So the Navy has been granted a patent for an advanced aircraft which resembles a UFO, and it kind of does. Here's the patent here. You can see it's called Craft Using an Inertial Mass Reduction Device. Current assignee, Secretary of the Navy, and the inventor here, the inventor's name is Salvatore Cesar Pace, I guess. Now, this is what their craft looks like. It's actually more of a triangular shape than a flying saucer, but wow, the fact that this patent got approved is pretty incredible. And I searched the inventor's name, Salvatore Cesar. He actually has 3 different patents he filed all within the last few years, and they were all granted to him. One's a high-frequency gravitational wave generator, one is that craft, another one is a piezoelectricity-induced room temperature superconductor. So multiple patents granted to this guy. Granted, I searched his name a little bit more. I couldn't find really anything on Google about him. So I'm wondering what the angle of these patents are. Because, of course, our military, Air Force, Navy, 3-letter agencies in concert with, you know, name your favorite defense contractor here, but they've had craft like this for decades. So this is nothing new. So the fact that the Navy is applying for this patent now, whether they're using a guy with a fake name or, you know, some sort of patsy proxy individual to apply for this patent with, the Navy is rolling this out. So is this, you know, some sort of partial disclosure that the deep state is trying to do, some sort of limited hangout, or is the Navy simply trying to get this information out into the public domain for more of a full disclosure reason? Don't necessarily know the motive or the intention quite yet, but at least in this Metro article, they talk a little bit about this patent, and then they quickly go into, again, the To the Stars Initiative, ATIP, Secret UFO Program, New York Times publicized limited hangout disclosure. And that's all I have for you guys in this one. My voice is going out a little bit, so I'm going to stop it right here. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you guys. I'll be back with many more videos, much more content this week. Stay tuned. Done.